Grand Rising, beautiful souls. Welcome to my page. My name is Lana Labonte, and if you have never seen me before, and this is your first time meeting me, I would like to give a little introduction to myself. So just bringing it back to where we all began. Radiculously Authentic was created back in 2017 with my now ex-partner. It was initially started to promote breath work, all about wellness and lifestyle. Breath work, yoga, meditation, movement, dancing, whole food, plant-based lifestyle, recipes, dancing in my kitchen, sharing my wisdom, giving insight into life. And I really believed in it because I am here to support, uplift, inspire, and empower people. That is my purpose in life. As I am here on Edgewater Drive in Dunedin, Florida, with the sounds of daily traffic drifting by, and the waterfront. So today's wisdom from the waterfront, as I share this story, because we are in times that are quite imperative that we become very, very discerning and acutely aware of our internal workings. Because nothing is ever really done to us that we don't already allow. That if you do not establish healthy boundaries and set a standard for your life and what it is you desire in this world, then others will overstep them. Because what you give, if you give an inch, people will take and even try to go over that. So if you give an inch, often people will take a mile. It's just the nature of the game of life. Does it make them right or wrong? No, of course not. Haven't you ever gotten something from someone and thought, oh wow, they were so generous. I wonder if they'd be willing to XYZ give me more. So as I started this whole Radiculously Authentic, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It was a lot of countless sleepless nights, building a meal plan with all of my recipes, comments, messaging, communicating with the people who became a part of our group, our community, our family. And we grew the group to 50,000 people. That took a lot of work. And at the time, I didn't see it right away, but I entered into a very toxic, narcissistic relationship with that partner. I didn't understand how mentally unstable he was, that he had not done the work, and that if any time I disagreed with him or tried to offer suggestions, I was met with resistance, I was met with argument, and I was also met with somebody who wanted to control and just say, and I do. He wasn't the healthy masculine leading me or guiding me or supporting me. He was the toxic masculine trying to keep me under his thumb, under his control. His need to control me was his inability to control himself. And when we do not emotionally regulate ourselves, we look to control and fix the externals. If you don't work on the internals, they will be the driver of your life. So if you have unhealed wounds under the surface, your shit will show. You may not see it, you may not think other people see it, but guaranteed they will see it. And it's up to you to do that work because no one can do that for you. So during this time with this partner, I invited them into my home. The home that I own, with the very little money I was making, that I was paying for everything, that the little money that we made from the meal plan, some of it I received, and some of it was squandered on the things that he wanted to do. You know, his yummy nastiness tour. His triggers came up and he used those as opportunities to go diving into a toxic path of, you know, food addiction. And I work with addiction. I work with addiction recovery. And the fact of the matter is, our biggest addiction is to our BS, our belief systems. That it has to be a certain way, when in reality, everything you think was implanted into your mind. From the moment you were born, you were told and taught how to think, what to look like, what is right, what is wrong. From your environment up until the age of 7, you were heavily influenced. And that is when the big programming really starts. That is your baseline. So when I talk about meditation and why it's so important, it's to become conscious of the unconscious programs so that you can confront and challenge them, because most of the times you don't realize they're not even your thoughts. You're just building upon thoughts that were implanted into you. But if you don't become aware of them and then challenge them, then they will continue to rule over you and run you into the ground. Because the mind just wants to stay relevant. It wants to stay in charge and control, when in reality it's there to be your servant, not your master. So as this relationship continued, it became a power struggle. The power dynamics of, if you disagree with me, I remove all admin rights from you. I block you and lock you out of your accounts, the ability to do anything with the page, in the group, on our YouTube. He would change passwords left and right if I just got out of line, because he needed to keep me under his control. He wanted to tell me what to do with no question, without any conversation, no asking, just tell. Why can't you just do what I ask? Why do you have to make a question about it? Why do you have to have a conversation around it? But yet he wanted to do what he wanted to do without question too. It was okay. Behind the scenes, this person did not deal well with people. And in fact, had anxiety in crowds, social anxiety. So if you ever saw him in person, you would see the protective stances of his body language and his posture. Because a person who covers up the root chakra, puts their arms across, or does this, is someone who is trying to protect themselves. It's actually a natural protective response of the body from someone who has experienced trauma in their life. Now, narcissism is a mental illness. It is the result of trauma. A deep trauma. And it's one that 9 out of 10 people can actually heal if they're willing to do the work. But when you have a very deep narcissist, covert, it doesn't matter what kind of narcissist, to be totally honest with you, when they are so far gone, they won't admit it. You can't confront them about it. And they will basically take everyone down with them, because that's just part of their self-sabotage. And they have to have you on the hook, and they will have someone on the hook on the back end, because if one person fails out, they got to have someone else to keep their fix. But essentially, in relationship, if you are not with a healthy person, they do not belong in an intimate relationship, because they're not contributing, other than maybe to make you aware and help you work through your own victimhood story, because we attract where we're at. And the only reason we would attract a narcissist is because of our people-pleasing, our fear of abandonment, rejection, our need to prove ourselves. It's a codependency. But when we wake up to our own patterns, there's healing in that. So we have to thank the narcissist, because that's what brings us to our into me I see, our realization that, wow, I don't deserve that. And until you speak up and set the tone and get grounded into your physical body and realize, wow, I didn't realize how much I didn't feel worthy of something better, that I accepted and tolerated this experience, however long that endures and lasts. Because if you can get out in the beginning, that's great. If you can spot it, then you can get out and run. But in the case of what transpired with me, I had a lot of things going on all at once. And of course, you can always look back and say I would have done things differently. Hell, I'll tell you right now, I would have kicked his ass out prior to my mom passing away. And the only reason, every time something would erupt, something would somehow bring us back. And then he made a comment like, do you notice we have these blow-up arguments and all of a sudden something brings us back together? Like, he made that sound like it was a badge of honor and it was a good thing. When the reality was, it was just life saying, Are you going to keep on going in for more till it gets so bad and worse, which is what essentially ended up happening with me ending up in the hospital with a ruptured appendix and having an appendectomy? I didn't want to come home after that. That was 3 years ago. That I honestly was so annoyed by his behavior. I didn't want him around when my mother was in the hospital because all he was an instigator. He caused rifts between me and my family that were unnecessary, that had nothing to do with him. He acted like a man-child, a baby, throwing temper tantrums. And I'm over here trying to deal with my mother being in the hospital and her imminent death on the horizon. I was very angry during that time. Because even at my birthday, I wanted to scream, and I couldn't even scream in my own home because I had to worry about him flipping out over stupid shit. It was the little things like that. So that in 2018, and I will tell you right now, ladies, pay attention. Because if a man cannot physically fuck you, he will try to fuck with you. What does that mean? We women have been trained, conditioned to be sexually arousing to men in our intimate relationships so that we think that there's something wrong with us, right? How many of you out there thought like that? How many of you have been like that or been with somebody like that? Where you were like, oh my gosh, I must be doing something wrong. He's not able to get it fully erect. That's not your business. Even his dick knows it doesn't belong in you. Take that as a sign and a warning. You want to go in for a second or a third try? I'm just saying. Chances are, and even if he does fuck you well, even if he does, at a certain point, his dick will go limp. Because at a certain point, that might have been all he had. And if he didn't have that to begin with, now he's pissed off and you got to pay for it. So there's a whole psychology that goes around with the narcissist. And I'm not going to harp on that very much longer here. I just wanted to express that the reason that this ridiculously authentic did not turn into something more as I had hoped and wished for, that I believed in from the start, and the only reason I even held out as long as I did with this partner. I held out because he told me he was going to help me build my brand, build my business, but he cut me off at the knees. Because with the 50,000 people we had in the group, he proceeded to start telling everybody how he felt everything should be free. Of course he did. Because he was living at my home, and he was paying for nothing. He had everything for free. I literally was so exhausted. Not only was I doing SEVA, I was a part of, and still was a part of, the Beyond Addiction program, the Kundalini Yoga teacher training as the administrative person there. I was receiving stalker notes at the studio as a result of his behavior, and me being blamed as being with somebody in a codependent, toxic relationship, which I agree with, but the behavior of this individual was mentally unstable as well. And so, who knows, maybe he was the one sending it. I couldn't tell you. You know, people are crazy in the world. A lot of people don't understand the things I dealt with behind the scenes. Like when he went to Hawaii, and we were literally getting death threats. And I'm back here in Florida, cleaning up after his mess. Because he thought he was going to be able to go to Hawaii, and he needed to help the people in Kauai. And I'm like, dude, you're choosing a place because you want to be there. That's one thing. But don't act like you can help and fix people. Like the arrogance and even that, I was hands off. I'm like, whatever. I should have left his ass in Hawaii, let's be honest. I spent thousands of dollars of my hard-earned money. He ate me out of house and home. He didn't give me anything but grief. He left me with the bigger mess. He took the group, because I told him at a certain point he had already taken it, and I had no admin access to it. He literally cut me off at the knees. Self-sabotage, because if he couldn't have it, he wasn't gonna let me have it. He wanted to rather see me fail and be able to act like it was me, when in reality it was because he never supported me. He was always competing with me, and I didn't know that right away. That the reality is he always wanted the spotlight, but he couldn't own that because he didn't even own his shit. He'd talk shit. That's what toxic is. Toxic is talking shit. Remember that. He didn't own his own shit, so he tried to create problems for other people, in particular myself. So he left me with a huge mess in my home. Buddy decided to stay with me, and honestly, that was the gift and the blessing of the whole situation, is that I really truly believe the buddy used him as the vessel, as the transportation to me, because that dog seeked me. You know, that's how pets sometimes find us as owners. It's the dogs and the animals, they will find us. They choose us. They know their mission. They know their purpose and their path. And so Buddy stayed with me. Even when he came to pick up the last of his stuff, Buddy jumped in the van he had. He was like checking it out. And then he came right back up to the front of the house and he's like, "Nice seeing you, dude. Bye. Don't let the doorknobs flap you on the ass," kind of deal. Like Buddy was like, "Dude, I got a good life here. She treats me well. I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm not abandoned at home like he used to do to him, shitting in the house and then wondering why he had to pay his security deposit because he never cleaned up after his dog." I mean, seriously? That really broke my heart for Buddy. But honestly, I had to call in somebody else to remove him out of my house. Because the way that he and classic narcissism is all about exhausting you. Is taking every word you say and twisting it and using it against you. Though you are expressing what is hurting you, they will turn it into you hurting them. They will play this little game, cat and mouse, and twist it so that you're defending yourself, which is not the need. You don't need to defend yourself. And in fact, that's why most of the times you'd catch me doing videos out by the waterfront, because I needed to get the hell out of the house because I know my body. I will not get physical. I will not get into an altercation of that nature. I would rather work it out of my system, out of my body, shake it out, move it out, because I know myself. I would go out back. One time I was out with the shovel and the rake and I was beating the compost, cleaning it up, turning it over. And he looked out and that was after an argument, and he looked at me, "You look like a crazy person." I said, "Really? I'm not crazy. I just know I'm better off giving it to the earth because I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of taking it out on you," which is what he would do to me. And I realized how hurt this person was at various times. There were times he tried to act like he was being vulnerable with me, but he was always guarded. One time, he admitted that he knew how he was and how he behaved. One time in 2 years that we were together. Yet it wasn't as vulnerable as one may think looking back. Another time after he just and he would threaten, "Oh, I'm going to put you on video so I can blast you." I'm like, "Go ahead, because blast you too." But he never did. I'd always call his bluff and he'd never follow through. With a narcissist, they will bluff and talk shit, toxic, but they will never follow through. The only thing he could follow through with was punishing me by taking me off of all the admin, off of my accounts, blocking me, locking me out, and leaving me basically like, what the fuck? What the hell? Excuse my French. And that was really, it got to be just, number one, it was exhausting and it was draining, but it was also just, even children aren't that cruel. An adult who pulls that kind of stuff does not belong in an intimate relationship. And I would just caution anybody out there, if you are ever with somebody like that, who uses things against you and punishes you for not complying with what they want, I want you to really be clear with yourself, because that's not healthy. And if you are sticking around, that's codependency. I am not with that person any longer. I'm explaining the story behind how this all came to be. So I had to have a friend of mine come into my home to be the witness so that I could say, "It's time for you to leave." And he proceeded to try to, "Well, I still need time to gather my stuff." I'm like, "No, you've had plenty of time," which he had. He'd had months. I'd kicked him out one time before that. He'd taken off several times and just acted like he could just leave and come back like it was nothing. But my friend had to be there because this individual was so toxic. I knew that if I tried to ask him to leave by myself, it would turn into 3 hours of an exhausting argument, because that was his way of continuing to hold on. That's all he could do, because I would get up and walk out the door and take my walks, because I'm like, I'm moving my body. This shit isn't mine. I know better. I work with addiction recovery. So everything he said, I could see the twisting. I would repeat it back to him, and I'm just shaking my head like, I'm not even going to play into this. And he would talk in the other room. He'd make up all this drama, and I'm just shaking my head going, this is absurd. And I remember one time he was curled up in the corner in the bed in the back, the side room that I have, my spare room. You don't even like me. Like, it was very regressive into his childhood. And so, it just showed me a lot. And I learned a lot from that experience, to be able to see what plays out in the world stage, to recognize. See, people who've experienced hardcore traumas, have had abusive relationships, have come from the product of some form of abuse. When you become healed, you become extra sensitive, and you can see with clarity, before it happens, what is about to play out. What I was expressing, and a couple of people that I know have recently gone through situations like this. I want to remind you, if you start a relationship and you're in the honeymoon stage and you're already arguing, that's just a sneak preview of the coming attraction, of the main show that they're putting on. Because if they can't hold it together more than 3 months to begin with, if they usually will show right away. You pick up on those signs, trust them. Trust your feelings, because the truth is in the feeling. So my friend came over, he gathered his stuff, he left. Within, I think it was 24, 48 hours, he was drunk. Oh, woe is me, I fell off the wagon, came to the house with cigarettes, begging to come back. I let him back, but I told him, you need to go to the VA. You need to get your disability for mental health, of which he probably got his 100% disability long before I did. I've been fighting for my disability with the military for a long time. He never gave me any retribution. He took the group, and at a certain point, he eventually moved out into a homeless shelter, which I was very grateful for, because it was beyond the time. So I allowed him to come back for, wasn't even 2 weeks. And I called him out and said, it's time for you to get a job. And he flipped out on me. And he proceeded to post in the group about how I was saying how he needed to get a job. And then he wrote it in such a way as if it was to pay for my debt. When in reality, every debt that I had accrued up to that point was because his ass was in my house and it was my money. And he didn't pay me anything back, okay? So I'm okay with that. You know why? Because when one door closes, an even bigger one does. And that's the opportunity when we allow ourselves to go through the discomfort, to get out of those familiar situations and get away from them. When you choose you, the universe conspires to assist you. So when that ensued and he took off to the homeless shelter, which just around the corner, there were a couple times I gave him rides. And I didn't get reimbursed. He didn't give me any money. He just, And he acted like, oh, you're my only friend. You're my best friend. I'm like, best friends don't punish their friends. And he would tell me, oh, the group is yours too, and I'd never take that from you. Dude, you have just expressed and demonstrated to me that your audio and your video are totally out of sync. Your voices and your everything you say is not in alignment with your actions. Because every time he would say that, it wasn't long after that he'd turn around and pull that stunt again. So I got so sick of it, I was like, you know what, he's already taken the group. He blocked me out of it, so I had no access to the group. I had access to this page. It's the only thing I had left was this page and 2 accounts. Now, for anybody who was following me on my other Lana Labonte account, I had created a page that got disabled last summer, and I really don't know what happened. Not this past, but in 2021. I have no idea. It was just one day randomly closed. No explanation, no excuse. And I don't know if he was like that type of person that would reach out and cause a report, because bullies don't have to be accountable on social media, right? They can report you and never be held accountable or even shown, right? Oh yeah, I'll get to that. I already got that. If you follow me, Pintia, you would know that I've expressed that for a very long time. I'm always knowing the lessons and my experiences. I'm sharing this experience and all of this with those of you who didn't hear the full story, and to understand where this has all come from. So when my page was disabled. I was still using my Lana A. Labonte, my last account, because my original account was disabled 3 years ago. My very first Facebook account. It's hard to say why, but it was long before censorship became an issue, and in all honesty, it was probably because they were trying to capture my email address or my phone number, not my email, but my phone number, because there was a time when if you entered the wrong information, they would totally lock you down, but yet there's tons of bots. You know, I'm coming from an IT background, by the way, so I already know more than I care to talk about on that level. I went on a trip to Europe to reclaim myself, to really just revisit my past long before all of this, because I felt parts of me had been left behind and was fragmented. So I brought myself back together again. On the 4th of October, a girlfriend of mine reached out to me on WhatsApp and said, I just tried to send you a message on Instagram and it says your account doesn't exist any longer. And I was like, well, that's really odd. I haven't even done anything that would even warrant that. So, and the night before, somewhere I had received, somebody reported, I don't even know what it was. It was an old video that I had done on that account when I was kicked out of Sprouts because I didn't want to wear a mask. Okay, what me sharing my personal experience is going against community standards? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. And so I went to check my Facebook account. It was disabled. And because I didn't have my phone number, I couldn't do anything until I came back to the States because I was on my Italian SIM chip over there. So then I checked my Instagram, and because they were connected, they disabled both of them. And my Instagram was only connected by stories. And that was my original Instagram from my previous time. So essentially, I have been disabled for who knows what. I really don't know, because I was never formally given an opportunity to confront my accuser, nor a real specific reason. And I had never the only community standard violation I had gotten before this so-called one, whatever that was because I shared from my Instagram over this beautiful image of a man and a woman embraced. They were both naked, but you couldn't make out anything but their, silhouette. And it was sharing someone else's post. And I'm like, why is that against standards when in reality there's all sorts of weird stuff out there that's being, whatever. None of it is meant to make sense. It's to keep you constantly in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Am I going to do it right? Am I going to, am I going to comply? Am I going to get in trouble? So, I could create all sorts of stories around why my account got disabled. It does suck because I was finally just feeling like, okay, no offense. This platform, it's not fun like it used to be. It's not fun like it was in 2017 when I really was having fun interacting with all of you. And I kind of was like, oh well, you know what? I'm exhausted from fighting, from anything that goes against my heart and soul. Like, why should I have to fight to prove myself? I think people should be recognizing that in their lives right now. That if you are still doing things just because, is it really adding value to your life? And I mean, honestly, when it boils down to it, you're talking about the kombucha. Yeah. If it isn't adding value and it's just sucking the life out of you, that means it's not part of your purpose and your path. Yes, your pain leads you to your purpose. Your message is in your mess. Your test is your testimony. But the reality is you holding out for something because you think you're going to get something out of it. And I did that with this whole platform. I was holding out, hoping to be able to connect further with all of you all, to do more, to present myself in retreats, to do workshops live and online with you, to do coaching and one-on-ones with people. But because he set the stage, cut me off at the knees, and planted the seed that everything should be free, it was just assumed that all of my time and energy that I'd already poured into building it, and 24/7 on the platform, answering comments, responding to emails, sending out, all sorts of different things, and creating content too, that I should just give it away. And that's wrong. Nobody should be expected to just give something for free, because when you give it away for free, people don't value you. They honestly don't. They may say, oh, I appreciate you. I love what you say. They'll reach out. I get comments all the time. I get messages all the time saying, I really love, someday I'd love to meet you in person. And I'm at the same time, as much as I appreciate the comment, if I've brought you any form of value, how do you really express that? How does that look like in return to me? Well, I want to see how you're applying it in your life. Are you giving me credit for something? Like just simply sharing some of my content could be one way to show appreciation. Have you bought my meal plan? Have you reached out and asked my prices for one-on-ones? Or do you think that I should still continue to give free consultation behind the scenes when I have given for years so much free content? I'm not here to convince anybody of anything, but I offer the looking within yourself to ask, if you want to be valued, you have to also value others. That there has to be reciprocity. That if someone has given you tons of free content at a certain point, they're going to either be exhausted, and because this is what happened to me, as I literally was so exhausted fighting with this individual while trying to maintain the same type of giving of myself. Well, I'm being depleted on the back end. And that's why I look back at my videos and I can see how tired I was. I can see how I was drained. I can visually see it in myself. But social media is a way for us to connect. And if we don't connect on a healthy level, then we're in the talk shit. We're in the toxic realm. And so we all have to, like during these times, be mindful. And so my last video, unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I took the headphones out because someone said they couldn't hear me, but the reality is it probably was just the little button that you push to turn the volume on, because Facebook has that weird thing where you may see it, but you don't hear it until you hit the volume button, which drives me crazy because it happens to me all the time. So let's go back to the breath and why I'm even here and why I do what I do, why I'm so passionate about somatic embodiment, movement, because movement is medicine, but it starts with the breath. Because if you're not breathing, how's your body going to move? If your breath is being held, your body's going to be stiff and stuck. When you're breathing, there's fluidity, and your body will move with it, not rigidity. The spine is a direct mirror of the mind, in that the belief systems, if you're dogmatic in your mind, then you're going to have a rigid spine. So when you breathe, be breathing in through the nose mindfully. Though you are breathing through every pore of your body, every orifice. The skin is the largest living breathing organ, by the way, and a lot of people are totally unaware of that. So inhaling through the nose, feel it expanding your body, getting deep down into the pelvic floor, expanding your belly, your chest. It lifts. And on the exhale, your chest lowers, and you feel that contraction of the ribs and the pulling in and up at the navel point toward the spine. Inhaling long, slow, and deep. Exhaling. Notice if your breath on every inhale is getting caught up somewhere in your body, and notice that area. Soften the face, breathing in. Soften the jaw, the neck. Let the shoulders relax away from the ears. Exhaling it all out. Inhaling. Exhaling. Sometimes it takes a little bit to just really settle into the breathing aspect. But the more present you are with the breath, the more awareness you come to with the mind. Because all the thoughts that you think when someone says to me, oh, I can't meditate, my mind is too busy. That just shows the person who can't accept what is and needs the mind to distract it from going within. Because the mind wants to stay relevant, it will look for things outside of itself to distract it. Because it doesn't want to go within, because it fears obliteration. It fears that you're gonna sabotage and get rid of it, like, oh, I don't need you. But you need the mind. It's not there to be, you know, people talk about, oh, you need to get rid of the ego. The ego's there to protect you. This is a world of duality. You need the dark and the light, the angel and the devil, because how could you know dark if you don't know light? And how could you know light if you didn't know dark? But when you are in total balance and harmony in your life, when you get control over the mind, you understand your inner workings, your underlying programming, because you have to make the unconscious conscious. Until you make the unconscious conscious, that is the program that is running the show and running your life. So you need to go deep within in order to have a rich life outside of you. What as within, so without. If you don't go within, you go without. You know I love languaging. This is so important. Okay, maybe you don't like meditating, but guess what? The sooner you do it, the sooner your life shifts and changes. Do it for 21 days. Check out my videos on YouTube. I've got tons of videos. YouTube has my videos for the Kundalini Yoga. I've got meditations on there. I'm going to be uploading a Fists of Anger, which is all about getting the anger out, because when we move the arms, nobody likes moving the arms. But guess what? That's all the mind, because the armpits are the garbage pit of the mind. And we all got to get rid of some anger. We all got layers of anger within us. Okay? So I will be uploading that this week. Fists of Anger. So make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the notification bell. Make sure that you're getting the most recent updates. Don't miss a beat. Because I'm here to uplift, support, inspire, and empower you. And I like to think that I do bring value. I have had a few people tell me I do. And I appreciate that. Because I need feedback too. Sometimes it's assumed that, oh, she's got her shit together. She doesn't have any problems. I'm here to tell you I'm human. I lose my shit all the time. My mind is the craziest mind. The things I can think, because the dots I can connect, the research and the deep diving I've done in my life. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm willing to go into the muck, I would be a raving lunatic. I would be a hot mess and then some. But I love my shit. I don't let my shit own me. And to be truly honest with you, I love all my mess. And when you come to that point where you love all your shit, then it becomes part of your toolbox. Because in reality, that shit will become the fertilizer of your life. That shit will be what the most beautiful lotus flower will blossom from. We're not here to deny any aspect of ourselves, but that's how we've been conditioned. And in this current climate and culture, we're told we should deny all this stuff, when in reality, that's what makes us us. And until you own your shit, it will own you. And like I say, we're a bunch of monkeys running around with our unmet childhood needs, flinging shit at one another, thinking that's going to solve and fix our past. How about just looking at it and going, wow, that was in the past. But the more you're holding on to it, the more you're recreating it, the more you're actually creating the resistance, and it doesn't even exist anymore. It's you telling the story that gives it power and continues to feed the energy to it. If you truly do want a rich life, whether that be money or experience, you are the master of your life. So we go back to the breath. We go back to becoming present in your essence. Every breath is a gift. Taking in that gift, that is the spirit. God loves you so much. He breathes into you. And when you take in that breath, then you slow down and you become aware of those thoughts. And those thoughts may be conscious or unconscious, but as soon as they come to the surface and you're like, wow, I'm thinking that? Yes, don't try to make it something it isn't. Because that's a lot of what people do. Oh, I can't meditate, my mind's too busy. Well, what that really is saying, I want things to be different than they are. I don't want to hear those thoughts. Well, those thoughts aren't necessarily yours either, and you have to confront and challenge that too. So when you see, oh my gosh, those thoughts, I don't like those thoughts. Well, ask them what they're about. Where did they come from? Are they true? Are they yours? Where do you feel it in your body when you hear your mind going in that crazy tailspin? Because when you become mindful, your mind is already full, but you're becoming aware of, and that is a key to change, you challenge it. If you don't challenge it, you'll be challenged in life. Again, if you don't own your shit, it will own you. So you have to be aware of it. You have to be conscious of the unconscious. And so with meditation, that becomes more and more apparent. And with that mastering of the breath and the awareness of your mind, you can master your mind. Then you'll notice in your body how lighter you feel, because the body is just translating the mind. The body is just simply a reflection of the mind, because it's always telling on the mind. It's like a tattletale. The mind is always dit, 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 and the body's like, ooh, what's true? The body will tell you. Ask it. And so when you master your breath, you master your mind, you master your life. And that's the mastering your whole domain. And that's what wellness truly is. It's about wholeness. It's not denying one or the other. It's making them whole as one. Because when you choose this or that, you have created fragment. You have created divide, separation. It's the oldest trick in the book, the art of war. Create the divide, create the labels. Labels limit. Don't buy into labels. Don't choose a side. Because when you choose a side, you are caught up in the divide. It's when you become the master, you walk the middle path. And the master knows neutrality. Ah, I see you trying to divide me, split me up inside internally. And that's what's playing out around us, is where you need to be a certain way to make others feel comfortable, when in reality that's the narcissistic way. And that's what I was discussing in this whole video, is if you are in a toxic relationship, notice the talk shit. Notice, even up in your mind, the divide that it creates, the discomfort and dis-ease in your body, because that is always going to tell you your truth. Feeling is truth. You have to feel it to heal it and know what's real. Because when you feel, that's what's real. Thoughts, they're made up. Poof, they're up in the clouds, right? Everything up in the cloud. None of that's real. It's all a construct. It's all a story. It's not tangible. But yet we're all afraid of the boogeyman in the mind. So this is where I am inviting each and every one of you to, number one, have an understanding that if you were following me on my last account, that I did not block, I did not unfriend anyone. That once again, the overlords of social media have taken and hijacked me once again. This is round 2. I am on round 3 now. This account here, I will maintain as long as I can. But ultimately, I'm seeking other avenues. And so if you do want to stay in touch with me, just check me out on my LinkedIn. I got my LinkedIn. I got my Twitter. I got my YouTube. That's probably where I will do the most right now, is my YouTube, because you know I love to make these videos. I probably will upload this to my YouTube as well. And then I love every one of you for reaching out and checking on me. And having like that awareness that I don't think she disabled me or deleted me or any of that stuff. No, it was never personal. But I understand when people take it and make it personal, because they're caught up in the trap, the game of social media. And if you remember, the first time I lost my Lana A. Labonte, my original account, I lost it before my mom died. And I knew back then, I had that experience to foresee what was coming down the pipeline, because that is how my life is guided. I experience things before the collective does, so that I can have a pulse on it and recognize what exactly people are feeling and experiencing. And when that first happened to me, I remember exactly how I felt. I literally felt disconnected. But this isn't even real life. This is just a modes of communicating. This is just, you know, you've heard me say it before. I believe in the power of social media to bring us together, because it can be used and harnessed for good or bad. But if with the intentionality of focusing to the connections that we've made, that is the beauty and the blessing it has provided. On the other hand, it's being twisted now. Now it's really being used to be used against us. And if you really notice that, you'll see the bickering, you'll see the arguing, you'll see the people out there who seek out conflict, the bullies who need to have an argument to feel relevant, the traumatized people who feel the need to be, argumentative, looking for something to complain about. And unfortunately, that's how these platforms have been twisted on us, because it feels like, I'm just saying, like we skipped a timeline here. We're in a different reality because we're inside out and upside down. What was offensive is now supposedly acceptable, and what was acceptable is now considered offensive. But just be mindful of that. You can still have compassion for those people, but you can also walk away and disconnect yourself, because again, this is just social media. And it's a way of keeping people hooked. The internet is a mind control too. And so we are connected here, and I'm very grateful for that. But I really want to connect with people one-on-one in person, which is why my focus will be for retreats and workshops and events around the world, globally. So hopefully we will all meet at some point, which would be absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. I'd love that. You get to see me as a real person, not just on your screen, on your device. We're all here with a purpose. We all have something to give. The question is whether or not we're holding back and complaining about. If you saw my last video on YouTube, and I spoke about, and this is something I had to confront to myself. Are you wasting your energy and your time talking about someone or something else? Yes, I have told you the story about my ex. I don't waste my time telling that story very often at all anymore. In fact, when someone asks me, and some of you have, I'm like, I'm sorry, that ship sailed a long time ago, like 3 years ago. I spent 2 years reclaiming my energy and getting my mojo back. And then it wasn't just him, it was other things in my life that I was rebirthing through and healing. That I am human, and that I have dealt with a lot of grief and a lot of loss. Having my implants removed really broke my heart wide open, made me more tender, more sensitive right now. That this past year I have actually spent so much time feeling things I didn't realize I hadn't felt in 23 years. 23 years of implants was a shield across my heart. And you're looking at somebody who's been doing this work, healing, opening my heart, that I had a rupture. Like, wow, that was like a major wake up for me. And so I go back to reeling it back, because I do that. When it's time to change, we have to honor the grieving process. And that is where we are during this eclipse season. Make the choice to change so that the choice is not made for you. I went through that in 2008, kicking and screaming when I didn't want to leave Italy that last time. I know I'm much different than 2018. The loss of my mother was a huge wake up, and it was very humbling and immortalizing. The experience of a narcissist in my life really woke me up to what was going on in the world stage. The toxic codependency that we have with governments, with systems that want us to depend on them, that want us to let them run the show and choose for their lives. Like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't resonate with me in my being. That we are so caught up in the stress mode of survival that the system has been designed in order for people to constantly be, I can't be bothered with that's going on in the world, because I'm just trying to survive and make money and pay my bills. And like, that's the system, to keep you so caught up that you can't even be aware of what really is important, what is really going on behind the scenes, what is the man behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, where the real show is, what's really going on, to try to take more from you. But you're just trying to hold on to what you have. What if you just said, okay, surrender to life. What if I followed my heart? That's some scary shit, by the way. To really, truly trust that your heart and your soul will guide you. Because we're conditioned to think the mind. We're conditioned that the mind knows. The mind doesn't know shit. The mind only knows the programming. And so how do you give up control when you think you're in control? You can't operate from the same level of the mind that got you in the situation to begin with. So, yeah, it was rough, but the experience, the first time losing my first social media, my first Facebook account, and my mother's too, actually, not long after that, taught me how much people are addicted to social media and their devices and their apps and everything else, to where it's worse than being outcast from society. Like back in the day, I'm old enough to remember like friends and people showing up at your house and making a phone call on a rotary phone, and like you met up. It wasn't constant cell phone access. And yet you're being bombarded by electromagnetic fields now, and people can't understand why they can't sleep. And the eye programming that you don't see the dit from these devices. You don't hear the low hum that's coming from these devices, but your body in the frequency it is feeling. I come from a computer background. I can tell you all sorts of stuff like that. The incidence rates of cancer going up. And when I was in the military, I had friends, issues with fertility, cancer rates going up. People who I knew who worked on radars and satellites out in the fields, they had all sorts of problems as a result of the technology, the microwave frequencies. But yet nobody wants to think about that. They want to like be, you know, oh, I don't want to think about that because I want my devices because I'm so addicted. See how they gotcha? So losing my social media just reminded me that this is the equivalent to most people, and especially younger people, because this is all they know for interaction in a lot of cases, not all, to where if you lose your access, I even lost my TikTok. That was crazy. I was blowing up because I was telling my life stories when I was in the military. And someone came in on a live and said, you know, I just went to go subscribe and follow you, but your account's no longer there. Boom! It blew up. My actual device was even banned, so I couldn't even start up a new account on that device. Mind you, I have 2 other accounts. I haven't even touched TikTok in months. It really is about collecting your data and your patterns. It always was. I know that from my background. And so imagine why we have a mental health issue right now. The mental health issue is the addiction to this and not actual physical humans. We need to get back to humans in unity, in the real community, versus this dependency on a device that is holding us hostage to our own lives. I didn't have a cell phone for a week because I was trying to fix something in my cell phone plan, and somehow it changed my SIM chip, and it took them over a week to get me a new SIM chip, and that's a whole nother conversation. But do you know, if it wasn't for the hassle of trying to get it sorted, honestly, I was like, I could use it for the Wi-Fi, I could get into certain apps and all that stuff, but I couldn't make a phone call. I was like, wow, I just want to be able to make phone calls because I was trying to do things, but I actually drove to those places directly and I took care of things in person. It was a little bit of a hassle, but it wasn't that bad. And because I've been there and done that and experienced the outcasting from social media, now it's twice, and it's 3 times, 4 times technically if you count the first Facebook, the second Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, right? I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to start all over again. It's all good. I'm grateful I still have this page for as long as that lasts too, because we never know. Anything could happen. You know, the grid could go out. We could lose total access to all internet. And then what would you do? Start thinking about it. Because anything is possible in this life. And I don't want you to think that this is always going to be the way it is. Haven't you noticed over the past 2.5 years, things could change in an instant? But it's a collective collaboration, and it's up to you and me to decide what that is. Not be told, which I think right now people want to be guided, but yet it's an internal guidance system. And you really got to tap into what feels right as opposed to hearing it. So I hope this resonates, and I hope this explains some stuff to some of you people who have been following me for a long time. I changed the name to my name. I am slowly but surely deleting certain videos and things off of this page as much as I possibly can, because unfortunately I've tried to go back in the history to remove things and I can't, because it goes past a certain point and it just, I don't know, it's social media, whatever. Even on my laptop I was trying to do that. But I'm also not going to waste my time spending too much time on that. Typically what happens is it pops up on my Lana Tom N. And that's another thing I just want to let you know. I've had several people say, why don't you change the name on this account? I don't know why, but Facebook won't let me. The Tom N. Lana was changed when I had originally started it as my regular name, my personal name. And Tom decided he would change it to Tom and Lana because he wanted to have his name first. I said, why not Lana and Tom? You know how it goes, ego, right? So I tried to change it a couple years back anyway, and it wouldn't let me. I don't know why it said that. There's no real excuse. It actually said I could only change it once and I had already changed it. And I don't know if that's true. I don't understand how that works. But it only allowed me to change the order of the name, as if like first name, last name kind of deal. So it would only let me change it to Lana Tom N. It is what it is. I'm sorry. It's not that I'm trying to deceive anybody. It's just the social media won't let me do anything about it. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I truly appreciate your energy, your time. I appreciate all the wonderful, loving, supportive comments from those of you who've reached out and checking on me, as well as giving me feedback and letting me know I look good. I appreciate that. And I accept it with love in my heart, because I've done a lot of freaking work healing. And when I came back from my trip to Europe, I came back whole this time. I picked up all my fragmented parts and I put them back together again. And now I am just a force, and I'm going forward in my life now. Stay tuned. There's a lot of changes coming on the front. I'm excited. I'm excited for myself. I'm excited for you. And just remember, if somebody is saying or doing something you dislike, don't make it personal and make it about yourself. It's never about you. You make it about you by choosing to get offended. And if you are triggered, just look within, because that trigger is the work you need to do within you. A trigger is just an opportunity to heal whatever that is that just was brought to the surface. So it's being served up on a silver platter, or some of us would say in Beyond Addiction, it is a gift without the bow. But if you're willing, you can heal your life if you're willing to feel it. Like I say, you got to feel it to heal it, because it's only feeling that's real. This is just a story, and it only knows what it's known. So the mind will create stories, but it's always based on the past. You can't know what you don't know until you know it. And so with that, I bid you adieu. Make sure to subscribe, like, click the notification bells, do all those wonderful things, because caring is sharing. Be kind and subscribe. I love you so much from the waterfront here in Dunedin. Whatever you're going through, just remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, and it is bringing you to bigger and better, brighter places. It may suck in the moment. Go look in the mirror and just remind yourself how worthy you are to go through the suck, because you got to go through the discomfort to get to the comfort. And that's where you'll grow the most anyway. So polish up that diamond. Shine bright like a diamond, beauties.